If you want a band 7 plus in IELTS writing, there are some things that you should do and some things that you should not do. So in this video, I'm going to show you 10 techniques that band 7 plus students use so you can improve your writing score. But before we start, if you want step-by-step training from an IELTS examiner for how to get a band 7 in every part of IELTS, make sure you check out our full IELTS preparation course. The link is in the description below. All right, let's get started with the first technique, which is complex sentences. So the first thing you might be thinking is, Shane, what is a complex sentence? Well, it's a sentence that has one main idea, that's called an independent clause, and then one or more extra ideas, which are known as dependent clauses. And these ideas are normally connected by words like because, although, when, or if. A complex sentence helps to show a relationship between ideas. When they're writing, most students just use simple sentences, but that's not going to get you a high grammar score. For example, a lot of students would write something like, many people use cars. Cars cause traffic problems. Well, this is very, very simple grammar, and it's not going to get you to that band 7 level. So let's put these sentences together and make it a complex sentence. Because many people use cars, traffic problems are becoming more common. So you can see that we have joined these sentences together and we have a complex sentence. Now that first bit, because many people use cars, that is the dependent clause. Okay, that's the extra idea. The next bit, traffic problems are becoming more common, that's the independent clause. Now let's have a look at some other examples of complex sentences. If people live longer, healthcare costs may increase. This is one of the simplest ways to make a complex sentence. You simply use an if clause. Let's have a look at some other ones. Although online learning is convenient, it may reduce student motivation. This is another way to make a complex sentence. You can use words like although or despite to show some contrast or some difference. While many people believe that money leads to happiness, others argue that personal relationships are more important. So this is another way you can use the word while. Now, while has a similar meaning to but. So we use it to talk about two things that are different, that are not the same. And here's one last example. As cities continue to grow, governments must invest in better public transport to prevent long-term environmental damage. So these are just a few different examples of complex sentences just to show you what they look like. Now you might be thinking, why do I need to use complex sentences? Well, in the band descriptors, it clearly says in this yellow highlight here, a variety of complex structures for band 7. So it's telling you right there, you need to use complex sentences to get a band 7. All right, so the second thing you can do is use topic sentences. Just have a look at this paragraph on the left here. In Southeast Asia, the number rose steadily, A similar trend was seen, Well, if you read this, it's a bit hard to know what the paragraph is actually about. However, if you look at this example on the right, look at that first sentence. Several regions experienced noticeable growth in the number of candidates. So now we know in this paragraph, we're going to look at the regions which experienced growth. It's very clear what this paragraph is going to be about. But in contrast, the one on the left, it's not clear. We don't know what it's about. Okay, so that's an example of a topic sentence in the green, but what is a topic sentence? Well, it's the first sentence of a body paragraph, and it tells the reader what the main idea of the paragraph is about. It simply tells the reader what you're going to write about in that paragraph. So now let me show you some examples of topic sentences. There are several reasons why people prefer to live in cities. This is one of the most simple ways to write a topic sentence. You start by saying there are, and then you say what you're going to talk about. So in this topic sentence, we're going to talk about the reasons why people prefer to live in cities. Very clear. Here's another example. One main reason people move to urban areas is for better job opportunities. So now we're telling the reader we're going to talk about better job opportunities, because sometimes in body paragraphs, you just have one main idea. So the main idea can sort of act or sort of be a topic sentence. Living in large cities offers a number of advantages, particularly in terms of employment opportunities. So as you can see, this is a more advanced topic sentence if you compare it to the first one where we just said there are. And finally, the last example we'll look at is here. Although urban environments can be stressful, the access to employment opportunities continues to attract people from rural areas. So this one is a fantastic topic sentence because it looks like this is the topic sentence for body 2 and we're linking back to body 1. And that shows you're a really good writer because you're linking all of your writing together. All right, let's move on to number 3, which is make comparisons in task 1. If you look at this question on the screen right now, this is an example of a writing task 1 question. And if you look at the second sentence, it says, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So the question is asking you to make comparisons. And if you don't, well, you might not get a high band score for task achievement because you have not followed what the question asked you. Now let's have a look at an example of a table where we can make some comparisons. So just quickly pause the video, have a look at the numbers and just think about how would you make comparisons about this data? Well, let me show you some examples now. So in Southeast Asia, the number of IELTS candidates increased the most, rising from 50,000 to 90,000. So that text in the green is a comparison because we're talking about the biggest increase. And that's often a very important feature for writing task 1. You need to talk about the biggest increase. Let's look at South America. South America also experienced significant growth. So that also is comparing, and we are saying that it had a similar pattern. So it also had growth. It was the same as Southeast Asia. So yeah, South America experienced significant growth with the figure doubling from 30 to 58,000. And finally, Europe saw a much smaller rise. So this much smaller rise is comparing to South America. Okay, we're saying South America had a big growth, but Europe had a smaller growth or a smaller increase. So we're making comparisons and we're doing what the question asked us. Let's move on to number 4 now, which is use contrast structures. If you want to write like a Band 7 student, you need to make your writing a little bit interesting and not write like a robot. One way you can do this is by using contrast structures. So instead of just talking about one thing, you can talk about something else that is different. Now, you might be thinking, what is a contrast structure? Well, it's a sentence that shows the difference between two ideas. Now, it often uses words like however or while or in contrast to show the comparison or the difference. So let's have a look at some examples. Many people believe that working from home is convenient. Well, this is a very basic sentence and it's not a contrast structure. Let's look at this next one. Many people believe that working from home is convenient, while others argue that it reduces productivity and social interaction. We've used that word in the blue, while, to make a contrast structure. and to talk about two things in one sentence. So this is making your writing a bit more interesting. And also, if you use contrast structures, you're using complex sentences. Here's another one. A very common way to use a contrast structure is by saying although. So although there are clear advantages to studying abroad, okay, that's a good thing. There are also disadvantages which students should consider. Well, disadvantages are bad things. So we're talking about the good things and the bad things in one sentence. That's why it's a contrast structure. And here's the final example. Online learning offers flexibility and convenience, whereas, and then you talk about something different. So why are contrast structures so important? Well, again, it goes back to the band descriptors where it says a band 7 for grammatical range and accuracy must have a variety of complex structures. And contrast structures are complex structures or complex sentences. So this is going to help to improve your grammatical range. Now let's move on to number 5, which is substitution. So just have a quick look at this sentence, this paragraph on the left here. It says, many people think social media is bad for society. Social media can, social media is used, social media is a big part, Well, what's the problem here? Well, there's too much repetition. We've said social media 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a very short paragraph. So this is not showing the examiner that we have a wide range of vocabulary, because if you had a wide range, you would use different ways to explain the same thing. Now, have a look at this paragraph. You can see that the first sentence is the same. That's fine. But then instead of saying social media, we say online platforms can waste people's time. Then we continue. Such sites are used. Then we say digital communication. But interacting with others on the internet. So you can see that all of those phrases and words in the green have a similar meaning to social media. No, they're not exactly the same, but they have a similar meaning. So now, instead of repeating social media 4 times, we're showing the examiner that we have a wide range of vocabulary. So the words in green, they are examples of substitution. Substitution means using different words or phrases to explain what you've talked about before. That is substitution. Now, please note that the paragraph on the previous slide is just a very simple example to show you the idea. It's not a band 7 answer, but I'm just trying to show you what substitution means. Now, let's have a look at some examples of how to substitute some basic vocabulary. So look at the word driver. Well, we could use the word motorist. Okay, similar meaning, but we're not repeating the same word. Student, learner, governments, policymakers, people, members of the public, doctors, healthcare providers, city, urban area. So you can see that all of these words in the right-hand column, they might not have exactly the same meaning as the words on the left, but they have a very similar meaning. This is substitution. You use words which have a similar meaning so you don't repeat the same word again and again and again. Now, please note that when you use substitution, the word doesn't have to have exactly the same meaning as the original word. It can be a little bit different. That's fine. That's no problem. All right, let's look at number 6 now, which is referencing. So let's have a look at this paragraph here. Many people think that technology, technology allows people, However, technology also, Well, what's the problem here? Well, it's very similar to the last point we looked at. Technology has been used 3 times. We are repeating the same word again and again, and this is not showing the examiner we have a wide range of vocabulary. So how can we fix this? Well, we can use something called referencing. Referencing normally means when you use this or that to talk about something you talked about before in a previous sentence. So if you look at the second technology, we could say this development. And you can see here that this development is talking about technology. So we're talking about technology, but we're saying this instead, this development. And then with the third technology, we could simply say it. And again, it is referring, it's referencing what we said before. And now if you look at the paragraph, well, you can see that we don't have technology 3 times. So our writing looks a little bit more professional, and it's easier to read and more interesting to read. Because if you just say the same word again and again and again, well, your writing's not going to be very interesting. So let's have a look at some more examples of referencing. Many cities are investing in renewable energy sources. This helps reduce pollution and dependence on fossil fuels. Well, if we look at the word this, that's an example of referencing, but what is it talking about? Well, it's talking about investing in renewable energy sources. So instead of saying investing in renewable energy sources, again, we've simply said this. It makes our writing much easier and just a little bit nicer to read. Next one, the number of tourists visiting coastal towns has risen sharply. It has created both economic opportunities. So what is it talking about in this sentence? Well, it is talking about the number of tourists has risen sharply. It's gone up. So when we're referencing, yes, we can use this, but we can also use it as well. Next one, several countries have introduced stricter laws on plastic waste. These measures aim to protect marine life and ecosystems. So if we look at the 2 words in the green, these measures, what is that talking about? What is that referring to? Well, it's talking about the stricter laws. So again, we're not repeating ourselves. We are using different vocabulary to say the same thing. Now, please note that a lot of the time you might use a mix of substitution and referencing. So you might say this, and then you might use a different word to describe what you talked about before. And that's absolutely fine. That is very, very professional. Now let's move on to number 7, which is passive voice. Now you may have heard of the passive voice before, but what actually is it? Well, the passive voice is a sentence where the subject receives the action. The subject is not the thing doing the action. We focus on what happens, not who does it. Now, let me show you some examples of passive voice sentences. Now, this first one is an active voice, but we're going to change it to a passive voice. So, people argue that stricter laws will reduce crime rates. Well, in this sentence, people, that's the thing doing the action. People are arguing. People are doing the action. But with passive voice, let's have a look what it looks like. It is argued that stricter laws will reduce crime rates. So we're not saying who is doing it. We're focusing on the action itself. It is argued. Next one, many experts say. So the experts are doing something, they are saying or they are talking that climate change is the biggest challenge of our time. Well, for the passive voice, we could say it is said. So we're focusing on the action itself, not who did it. In this passive voice sentence here, we haven't even mentioned experts, okay, because we're not interested in who is doing the action. Next one, researchers have found that exercise improves mental health. So again, researchers, they are the people doing something. They have found that exercise, However, for a passive voice sentence, we could say it has been found that exercise improves mental health. So again, we're focusing on the action, not actually who did the action. So the passive voice is a very simple way you can add a new structure to your grammar. You can use it for writing and you can use it for speaking. But please note, you shouldn't be using it for every sentence. You should only be using it when it's natural and appropriate to do so. Let's move on to number 8, which is inversion. You might not have heard of this one because it's not something that a lot of people talk about, but it's very useful if you want to emphasize something or really focus on something. So inversion just simply means when the natural or normal word order changes and the verb comes before the subject. This is often done to make the sentence sound more formal or to give it more emphasis or to focus on something more. So look at this sentence here. People only recognize the benefits of online learning after the pandemic began. Well, there's nothing wrong with that sentence, but let's have a look at an example of inversion. Only after the pandemic began did people recognize the benefits of online learning. So this is just a different way to say the same thing, but we're focusing on after the pandemic began because that's the first thing in the sentence. So normally the first thing is the most important. Let's have a look at another example. Citizens should not be allowed to carry firearms in public places. Firearms just means guns. Again, there's nothing wrong with this sentence, but let's change it and I'll show you an example of inversion. Under no circumstances should citizens be allowed to carry firearms in public places. So you can see with this second sentence, this inversion, it's a little bit more professional, it's a little bit more formal. And if you write like this, it's going to show the examiner that you have a higher level of grammar because most lower level students would never write like this. Now let's look at one more example. The government rarely considers the long-term effects of its policies. Well, let's have a look at an example of inversion. Rarely does the government consider the long-term effects of its policies. So inversion can make your writing sound more formal and really focus on certain points. Again, you don't need to use it in every sentence or every paragraph, but if you just use it sometimes, it's going to help to increase the range of your grammar. Let's move on to number 9, which is don't use personal language. No you or we. Now, you might be thinking, why can't I use you? Why can't I use we? Well, the main reason is that personal language is too informal for an academic essay because it's like you're talking directly to the examiner and you're having a conversation, but that's not what you're doing. You're not talking directly to the examiner. You should be talking more in general. And another reason is that you can use better language instead of just saying you or we. So let me show you an example. So let's look at this personal example here. When you study abroad, you can experience different cultures and improve your language skills. Well, that's talking directly to the reader. However, you may also feel homesick and struggle to adapt to new customs. In the long term, studying overseas can change the way you see the world. Now, let's make this an impersonal example. So let's remove this or these yous and this one your. So for the first one, we could say when international students study abroad. So this is more in general, and we are using the best word for the situation because the person reading, well, they're probably not going to study abroad. So if you say when you study abroad, it's not really correct. So the best phrase we can use here is international students. The next you, well, we can change that to they. So they can experience ... and improve your, well, we could say their language skills. Now this next one, however, you, well, we could change that to these students. So we're using an example of referencing here because we're saying these to talk about what we talked about up above. And then finally, the last one, the way you see the world. Well, you could say the way international learners see the world. So now this is an impersonal example. We're talking in general. We have removed all of the yous and the your. Number 10, vary your sentence openers. Part of getting a high band score for grammar and vocabulary is using a range of different words and different grammar structures. But a lot of students, well, they do the exact opposite. They use a very limited amount of words or a very limited amount of grammar. For example, a lot of students write like this. Let me show you. Tourism is important for the economy of many countries. Okay, short sentence, present simple, tourism is important. Tourism also increases income for local businesses. Well, again, present simple. And also, tourism improves, again, present simple. This is because tourism is necessary for economic growth. So you can see here that all of these sentences are simple sentences with the same subject-verb pattern. There is no range of grammar here because it's just all the same grammar. So now let me show you some different sentence openers you can use just to make your writing a little bit more interesting. So the first sentence opener you can use is a time phrase. In recent years, the demand for electric cars has risen sharply. And note here, we are using the present perfect because we have said has plus verb 3. We can also use a cause phrase. Due to increasing pollution, many cities are investing in public transport. Well, this second part of the sentence, that's present continuous. We've got verb to be, and then we've got verb ing. So this is another great one. You can use a cause and effect phrase. You can use an ing phrase. So that simply means start your sentence with a verb ing. So increasing global trade has brought both benefits and challenges. And finally, you can use a participle phrase. So encouraged by government incentives, more people are buying solar panels. So these are just some basic examples of different sentence openers you can use to improve your range of grammar and just to make your grammar more interesting and make your writing more interesting. Now, please note, these are not all the different structures you can use. There are many different openers. These are just some basic examples. So they were 10 techniques to improve your writing. If you want to learn 40 words that you should not be using in the writing test, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. I really hope that was useful for you, and I'll see you in the next lesson.